first and only train hopping experience. It seemed like an extremely warm night for March. John, Dave, and I were headed down to the Nevada test site for a nonviolent protest and action camp. We decided to train hop from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas and hitchhike up to the protest camp 30 miles north just outside the nuclear test site. Around 9 p.m. we found a large piece of cardboard to put against the back of an open grain car so the wind wouldn't blow up through the large crack. We had a plastic tarp to pull over us. We asked someone working at the train yard which one to take, and he pointed us to a hot shot, a direct fast train to Las Vegas. We had settled in when we heard some noises. A hobo and a crusty punk who were traveling together introduced themselves and told us that some Mexicans had broken into a boxcar, damaging the front, but it contained corn, so they didn't think it would be a problem. They found a place to travel further back on the train. The train finally pulled out around 3 a.m. It started to rain. It was the warm before the storm. Far from being a hot shot, the train started and stopped, picking up and dropping off cars all along the way. This lasted for hours, and why we christened the yellow train the Golden Slug. We drifted in and out of sleep as the rain turned to snow. The train at last started moving at a rapid pace about 50 miles east of Salt Lake. We woke up the next morning, stopped in the middle of the high desert of eastern Nevada. We were soaked to the skin from the rain and snow despite the tarp. The desert was cold, and John, who had some experience hopping freight, suggested we move up to one of the engine cars, which had a heater. We gathered our stuff together and hoped the train didn't get going until we made it to the engine car, leaving us stranded in the middle of the desert. We could keep a low profile, dry ourselves and our stuff out and get warm. After switching crews, one of the new men found us in the engine with all of our wet stuff splayed out across the middle of the car next to a high voltage sign. He said, "Oh my God, just keep a low profile when we go through the towns along the route." Though I was in my 30s, I remember the ride from when I was 5 years old, going to California and Disneyland with my family. It was the first time I had seen Red Rock, much like the scenery on the Roadrunner cartoons. Thoroughly enjoying ourselves, we smoked some pot as the train rode through the sandstone desert. We had stuffed our dried-out clothes back into our packs as we came into Caliente, Nevada, and peeking out, saw what looked like a small town from a Hollywood Western, complete with buildings with false fronts, a board sidewalk, and people walking around with guns. Suddenly, the train came to a complete stop. The engine door burst open, and two cops came in with their guns drawn. We'd passed some workers working on the track who must have called ahead about the broken-into boxcar. The cops pointed the guns towards our head and ordered us off the trains. We were then handcuffed. Some Caliente citizens came up with their guns and asked if the cops needed help. The cops said they had it covered. Handcuffed from behind, the crusty punk and the hobo were brought up and set next to us on the ground. The suspect boxcar was inspected and found with just the corn. For illegally riding the trains, the cops said he'd search us and our stuff, and if he didn't find anything, we were free to go but could no longer ride the train. As the train pulled away, one cop had held a gun on us, while the other patted us down and started going through the contents of our packs. He found a sketch pad in my pack and looked through all the pages, making comments. I had a small one-toke pipe and some weed hidden inside some thick wool socks that fortunately he didn't catch. I was relieved when he finished with my pack. At the time, Nevada had some of the harshest drug laws in the country. He got excited when he found what looked like weed in John's pack, but it turned out to be a tobacco herbal blend. It looked like the cop hadn't found anything when he went back and rechecked a pocket of John's pack. There he found a pipe and some weed. He immediately arrested my friend, hauling him off to jail. The police told the rest of us that we were free to go, but we shouldn't remain in town long. We set up a makeshift camp outside on the outskirts of town and bought some beer. We sat around the campfire drinking. The hobo got mad at the crusty punk about why he never cleaned himself up. Dave and I woke up early the next morning while the other two were sleeping to call the police about our friend. They said he'd be in jail for a while awaiting his arraignment. We made a sign that read LV for Las Vegas and sat outside the town with our thumbs in the air. After a few hours, we were picked up by a guy who said he was the black sheep of the predominantly Mormon town. He told us if he hadn't picked us up, we'd have been waiting for days as the locals frowned on hitchhiking. After telling him our story, he told us that in his younger days, he used to smoke pot with one of the cops that pulled us off the train. We thanked him as he led us off on a road that led out of Las Vegas going north. We made another sign that said Indian Springs, a sure ride sign that anything having to do with the test site, and eventually got a ride with a goth. He took us to the test site, but didn't seem too interested in the protest camp or the politics. It took a lot of phone calls from the jail from a support house in Las Vegas, but John was eventually let out of jail after a few weeks and a few $1,000s from his father. After that one ride, I kind of lost my appetite for the fantasy of train hunting.